Welcome to Dad Built. Today I'm going to tackle a woodworking project for beginners. With Veterans Day and the holidays coming up, I wanted to make a nice gift for someone. I come from a military family, so the idea of making a rustic wooden flag was perfect on all fronts. Now, when I want to make something new like this, I do what you do. I go to YouTube to see how to do it. So this video is going to cover my experience and the step-by-step of making this wooden flag that you see behind me. I watched a couple different videos on how to do this, and I'm going to share the one that I found most helpful in the description below. Now let's get started. So I've got this 8x12 piece of premium pine. It's 3/4 of an inch thick, and I picked this up for about $47 at Lowe's. And what I'm going to need to do is cut this board down into strips. So I'm going to have 13 strips that are 39 inches long by 1.5 inches wide. First, I'm going to mark my board so I can cross cut into two 39-inch planks. My saw isn't a sliding one, so I had to flip the board over to make the full cut. Once I had my two pieces, I clamped them together and ran my sander over the ends to make them as uniform as possible. Then it was time to set up my table saw. I need these boards to be ripped down into 1.5-inch pieces. I should be able to cut 14 of these from my two boards. Now I can cut my pieces. The table saw is a critical tool for this project. It allows you to quickly process these boards down to what you need. My next move is to give this wood some character. I'm gonna do that with this propane torch. Now, if you've never used a propane torch before, I suggest you do some test runs. I've got this piece of pine here. It's not the premium pine that I'm gonna be using, but I'm testing it out to see how close and how fast I should move this torch across the wood. To prepare for this step, I squared up 13 pieces and lightly sanded the ends. Then I can get to work with my propane torch. This part was new to me. I've never burned wood with a torch like this, and I didn't want to overdo it. So as I started out, I was holding the torch a little farther back and moving it a little faster than I needed to. Once I got the hang of it though, I felt more comfortable with the distance and the speed that would give me my desired result. I really like the look that this gives. Adding heat to the boards brings out the wood grain and gives each piece some unique character and color, but how much you do really comes down to preference. I wanted a lighter treatment, something subtle but not too overpowering. Once I was happy with the results, I clamped the boards back together, and then I can mark the area where I'm going to paint the stars. I took the top 7 boards and I marked them at 15 3/4 inches. Now I can move the project into the garage for staining and assembly. Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid. Hit that button below to subscribe to Dad Built DIY. Your support goes a long way, and I'd love to see you around for the next project. Now, let's get back to this flag. Staining is really fun. To prep my pieces, I tapped in some razor blades along the line that I marked for the stars. This was a really good idea that I took from the YouTube video I watched on this process. I don't want any of the blue or the red stain to bleed through across this line, so the razor blade is going to help prevent that. I'm using a semi-transparent oil-based stain, barn red for the stripes, and navy blue for the stars banner. I'll start with the red. Then I can move on to the blue. Once the stain is on, I'm going to let it dry for about 24 hours. The red side dried nicely, but the blue was a little tacky, so I used a piece of steel wool to clean it up. I was really happy with the way it turned out. Now I needed to attach the pieces together. And to do that, I turned them over, squared them up, and clamped them together. Then I took 4 19-inch pieces that I cut from some leftover wood and lined them up. Then I marked the center of each of my 13 strips, and I countersunk holes into the 4 brace pieces. Then I can apply some wood glue to the pieces, set them on the back, and screw them in. When I screwed down the braces on the back, it created some unevenness in height across the 13 strips. I could fix this by clamping those back pieces to the work table to really put some pressure on the boards to lay flat, but when I turned it over to look at it, I actually liked the subtle variety in plank heights, so I decided to leave it the way that it was. Let's paint some stars on this flag. I used a Cricut machine to cut a star pattern out of some stencil vinyl. If you don't have a Cricut machine, you can buy customizable star stencils on Amazon or Etsy. Using an actual stencil would have saved me some hassle. This vinyl was a bit of a pain to line up the way that I wanted it and get it stuck down right. Another issue was the board heights not being completely flat. My stencil didn't stick on as flat as I wanted it to, which is going to create a problem when I go to paint on these stars. But I got it on finally, and I needed to cover the rest of the flag to protect it from overspray, so I used some butcher's paper for this. I taped everything off really good for the spray paint. I'm using this satin sheen paint and primer all-in-one spray for my stars. And I'm just going to do a light application for the first coat, and then follow it up with a more robust second coat. After it's all dry, it's the moment of truth. I need to take off this paper and peel off the stencil. I knew the board heights being off was going to create a problem when I sprayed on these stars. In peeling off this stencil, I can see that all the stars aren't as crisp as I wanted them to be, but I'm okay with it. I think it adds to the grungy aesthetic of this piece, so I'm going to leave it as is. To finish up, I'm going to add a couple coats of polyurethane to protect the surface, and then this flag is going to be ready to go on display. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Dad Built DIY for more DIY projects like this one. I'll see you next time.